5 minutes? 10 minutes. So, 10 minutes is enough time for a quick trip to the Arctic. And there's actually a couple of food pictures to keep your appetite. So how do we know when climate change is happening? How do we know when climate change is happening where we live? I think we know because we are familiar with the place. Familiar like family. Very familiar. And that familiarity in some places is maintained. But local knowledge, traditional ecological knowledge, are examples of the finest scale. Maybe in some places people are experiencing climate change in extreme, but the ability to recognize climate change at a fine scale is one of the things that traditional knowledge allows us to do. And at the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium, we start all of our climate change activities with trying to understand traditional observations, traditional knowledge. So I'm going to talk really briefly about some of the activities that we've employed at the local scale, but also some of the regional scale efforts and how we're trying to use traditional knowledge in doing that. So I work for, we established the Center for Climate and Health, and we've received some help from a number of federal agencies in developing this. And what we're really trying to do is to raise awareness and to understand the mechanisms that are causing climate change. You know, another thing that traditional knowledge helps with is it's not only understanding what is happening, but so what. And that's really what we're interested in. So what does it mean to communities and people's lives? And we qualify health effects really into these 5 categories: chronic and acute disease, injury, impacts on mental health, it's very important, the climate issue, and food and water security, including the systems and infrastructure needed to provide that. And we have a number of products that we put out. I have an example of a local assessment. That's what this is on the back table. And I'm just going to talk about one tool in particular, which is developing a local observer network. But before that, a few pictures to describe and maybe build on our understanding of what's happening in the Arctic. So we're trying to understand impact. And the way we start doing that, the way we've started to do that, is to pay attention to media sources originally, and trying to see where there's a connection with climate change in a community. So this is Savunga. It's a coastal community. They get windstorms a lot, but what was interesting about this one is this was happening in January of 2011, and there wasn't any ice. So the impact was completely different. And that meant a lot of blowing salty water, and then failure of the electrical system, and then water system, and then housing. So we scan, we're trying to understand northern impacts. So we scan media from all around the Arctic daily. Canadian Broadcasting Service, Norway, Sweden, Russia, Alaska. And when we see a clue as to a connection between climate change and an event and impact, we map it using Google Maps. So this is our July map. We've had some visits on it. We do one for each month, and they're archived. And you can see we have a number of different events that are mapped in Canada, Finland, and other places. And we hope that helps with understanding, but also really begins a conversation about what did they do to respond? What did they do to prevent? What are they doing to prevent negative effects in the future? So in Alaska, I'm going to focus on thawing and melting because it's in the northern parts where you're seeing probably the most extreme impacts. And this always, I think, gets people's attention because the coasts are soft, right? They're just frozen dirt. And when it warms a little bit, big changes occur. This is up by Prudhoe Bay. So coastal change. Norman talked a little bit about lake change. You know, the Arctic is really a desert. And the only reason why it's so wet is because all the moisture that's there is sitting on top of ice. When the ice goes away, well, the water has no place to go. But when the ice in the ground goes away, it goes away. The water goes away too. So drying is an issue. And all of these little lakes here, again up on the North Slope, are drying. That's the community water source for all of the communities in northern Alaska, of these tundra lakes. 5 minutes, okay. These are thermokarst slumps. A lot of impact on the rivers. Once they start, they just keep going. This is permafrost-driven erosion. And in the village, in the communities, when you build on top of ice and the ice thaws, it has really dramatic impacts. So this is the water line. You can see how it's all tilting. In some communities, there isn't usually a city planner that is there for the long term. And so how the house is built versus how the pipes are built versus how the sidewalk is built and the road is built, if they're connected, they're all thawing and sinking at different rates, and it can cause some catastrophic failure, which is what's happening in Selwick. They've lost their water supply a number of times now. And this is Kivalina. Storm impacts, less ice, less buffering of storm energy, a lot of erosion, a lot of effect. And this, again, extreme weather events. This is also in Kivalina. Kind of makes me wonder about the way we're building our water tanks with the clinic in the middle, because this was a really unusual image caught by video of lightning striking. Lightning's really unusual up in the Arctic to begin with, but is this a health risk? Could be. It happens more often, I guess. And then food security. There are a lot of food confidence crises happening. People are not sure their food is safe. There's also food security crises happening all across the Arctic, across Alaska. And there's also some good news. There are a lot of communities are starting gardening activities when they haven't before and are seeing great success in doing that. So by tracking these events, we are beginning to understand the types of climate to health connections across Alaska. And we can point, like Bob was saying, we can point to specific events. And we can talk about the science that's been done to confirm. And we can look at seasonality, how it's been changing from year to year. But this turns out actually pretty well as a photo. Here's the night sky, right? And here's Alaska, and here's the Arctic. There's not a whole lot of newspapers for one thing, and the villages that are few and far between, and they're small. So, but if you zoom in, next slide. So this is actually Alaska. You can see that here it's kind of hard, but there's a lot of little lights out there. And that's an opportunity to really look at the best source of information, which is communities, local observers who really understand what's happening. The media, newspapers, is just not a good enough way to monitor change that's happening. So, in order to be more thorough, we've tried to engage local residents who are willing to apply their traditional knowledge to inform when change happens, what it looks like, and why it's relevant. Why is it important? And we've done that using technology, but also using some systems that are already in place. So this is, I'll just pop through these real quick. This is a map of the tribal health system in Alaska. This is all the clinics, the water systems, water operators, hospitals. It's quite an involved infrastructure, quite elaborate, all connected with good communication. Next slide. This is EPA's map of IGAP, Tribal Environmental Management Grant recipients, all with computers, all with training, all with use of digital cameras. Put all this together, it's a really robust monitoring system based on local knowledge. And so we started this program called LEO, and there's information on the back if you want to know more about it. Local Environmental Observer. And again, we're using these maps to try to identify where events occur, when they occur, and then to archive the information about the event and to use it to connect to other communities who might have expertise, or scientists, or agencies. So since January, we've had 131 LEOs in 85 communities. And I'll just show you really quick. Are we done? 1 minute? Okay. So there's sort of a social networking aspect of it. This is just available to the members. They have their own map. These are the kinds of things that we're tracking. They go to a website and they post these. So, next slide. The local observer decides with their tribal council, is this something that's relevant and important, and should we post it, and do we want to share it? So that decision happens at home. Once they post it, we then share it with the group, but it's also on a website that is on the World Wide Web, and so we can use that to connect to other resources. So here's the archive by month. And this is how you join. They have to self-register if they want to be a member. And this is how they post. And it's a pretty simple process. Next slide. And here's how it comes out. It's another Google map. This is May 2012. Here we had a posted observation of a deer with fur loss in southeast Alaska. And once it was posted by the local observer, this is all community up. So they decide, they see something that's unusual, they say, let's see if we can get some help on this. They post it. We then contacted the state veterinarian for Alaska. He added some good information, but he didn't know what it was. And so he referred us to BC and their wildlife service. And they were able to say, here's probably what's going on, one of these options. Yes, this is climate related. We're seeing a range expansion of this kind of disease, and you can help. And then they started a conversation about how do I collect samples from a harvested deer in order to confirm what types of diseases are occurring. And they began their own partnership. So the responses were all captured, including from the British Columbia veterinarian, in the map content. And here it is. This is the original posting. They talk about what happened, and they also talk about why is it important, how is it affecting me. That's part of the traditional knowledge aspect of this. And then the response from the veterinarians was Kimberly Beckman with the state of Alaska. And we go back to that now when we see other types of deer-related skin issues. I think that's just about it. Next slide. So the take-home, communities are being impacted, and their health is being impacted. And they're looking for assistance. In this program, local observers decide what is important, what is relevant, and whether it should be shared or not. And then they can be connected to topic-specific experts in their community, in their tribal organization, or in other agencies. We'd love to see this kind of sharing occurring beyond Alaska. Because like I said, things are moving up. Things are moving forward. And we need help. You know, how do you, like Norma said, how do you dry your fish when the temperature is so warm or so wet? Someone's done that before. Someone's preserved their fish, and we need that knowledge. And that's it. So there was a picture of a salmon in there, wasn't there? Thanks. I'm hungry too. Thank you, everybody.